Hey folks, welcome back to the channel. Welcome to Deer Corner. I'm going to do a part 2, you could say, of rub lines. We got about 4/10 of an inch of rain this morning. Sun come out hot and humid, and I'm changing my chains out on my chainsaws. I got another couple days of cutting up firewood for the winter time for hunting season. So I'm pulling out the old chains, I'll sharpen them, put on the new sharp chains, be ready to go today. It's something for me to do. But hunting rub lines, historical rub lines. There are several types of rubs. I'm going to try to explain this a little bit. And finding rubs, not all rubs are a rub line. Not all rubs are historical rub line. They're not. The first rub, early season, you come across, and you find one, especially on the edge of a field or just right inside of the timber line. Look around it. You find a rub that's a couple days old, fairly new rub. Look around it. Look for something that looks like a dried up, curled up leaf. And these rubs, early season, very early, I call velvet rubs. And that's where the velvet's starting to come off the antlers, and the bucks are starting to harden up their antlers, clean them up, get the velvet off. And about 70% of these rubs, you're going to find velvet. But you have to look for it. It looks like a dried up, curled up leaf. Gray, red, comes in colors, but you need to pick it up and roll it out. And you can see the velvet, it kind of just disintegrates as you're opening it. But you can see the velvet inside the rolled up, curled up velvet. But those are velvet rubs where they're cleaning it. If you find that on a rub, go ahead and discard that rub. That rub's just a velvet rub. Most likely he won't return back to that rub. But it's a good sign. It's a sign that there's a buck in the area. And you're out scouting, and you're out walking along. And some people call them a whip rub, but I call them just feeling his oats rub. And that's where a young buck will just be walking along and hit a tree, rub on a tree. But then you got to sit back and wonder if that is on a rub line. But you have to put in fact that cover, wind, and thermals play on that rub, and you have to think about that when you find these rubs. And if there's no cover, and there's a wind direction that straight across, wind direction, and the thermal, there's no thermals. The thermals you usually find on the side just before you peak a hill. It's where that wind comes up, hits the hillside, comes up the hillside and goes up, along with the heat will cause a thermal. So most generally, if you find it down in a flat area where the wind's just cutting across, you're finding a whip rub, or what I call a buck feeling his oats rub. And the other thing when you're out in the woods scouting, especially just before a peak of a hill, or just before the top of a hill, and you've been walking around, and you see a tree the size of a basketball, or a beach ball, volleyball, and you notice at the bottom of that tree, there's a scar. And it could be 2 feet, 3 feet long by then. And the bark is just kind of peeled over, grown over it. But you see the meat of the tree. And you're looking at that, and the first thing is wonder what caused that. Well, you're looking at a rub on that tree that was done maybe 25, 30 years ago. Because a tree grows from the inside out. It don't grow from the ground up. That's just like you take a nail and hammer it in a tree at 2 feet. And you come back 20 years later, that nail will pretty well be in the same spot about 2 feet above the ground where you nailed it. So 20 years ago or so, when that buck rubbed on that tree, it caused the scar. And that tree grown 20, 25 years. And it caused the bark to peel over, it caused a dead looking spot in the tree. Now you're getting somewhere. Start looking. And if you find another rub 30 feet, 40 feet, 50 feet from that tree, and another rub, you have found a historical rub line. And those are the spots. Those are the lines you're looking for. That's what you're looking for when you're hunting for a historical rub line. And one of the things I like hunting rub lines. That's what I do mainly. That's where I get my majority of my nice deers off a rub line. But I watched a podcast, listened to it, and an old fella was talking about it. Now, I like what he said about the rut loop. And it got me, it turned the light on. That's exactly what you're hunting. You're hunting a rut loop when you're hunting a historical rub line. And that buck, he may travel that rut loop for 3 or 4 days. It could be 3 miles long, 5 miles long, 10 miles long, depending on the terrain and the location, how long that rut loop is, and especially during hunting season. You have to keep in mind when he's on that rut line and a doe comes in estrus and he goes after that doe, he could be gone off that line 4 or 5 days or longer. But after that, after he's done chasing that doe, he will go right back on the line again and get back on that rub line. So, hunting a rub line is how I hunt. I've already said that. And some people say they have better experience, a better chance on hunting a scrape. Now, community scrapes especially, I do not hunt over or around. I do not want any way, shape, or form of myself spooking the buck or the buck's using it in any way, shape, or form. And if you're hunting an historical rub line, he's going to hit that scrape and he's going to go down the line. He's either coming up the line to that scrape or going down the line after that scrape. That's the time to pick him off. That's the time to find the area to get him. And that's why I do not hunt scrapes. I don't want any chance of spooking a deer. So that's, to me, that's the rub line. We have taken several nice bucks last year. It could have been the dominant buck on that line, but sooner or later, another buck will step in his shoes and become the dominant buck. It may not be this year, it may be next year. But if you find a historical rub line and you hunt it correctly, sooner or later, within a 10-year period, I mean, that's a long time, but you'll see several bucks. And I would almost guarantee you'll get the buck of your choice hunting on a historical rub line and finding it. And I know some people, that's just not going to work for them. They're going to put out mock scrapes and hunt over a scrape, hoping that the buck, the dominant buck, is going to come to that scrape, which odds are they're not. Or they're going to be sitting back and relying on their food plot, sitting up in a stand or a ground blind hunting a food plot. And I don't plant food plots no more. I never found any reason to right now. But my neighbor, back on the back church property, 42. He's got a very nice food plot, very nice. And funny, last couple of years, he said he's been seeing nothing but small deer, not no mature deer in his food plot. But I didn't have the heart to tell him I'm cutting him off before they get there. And that's one bad thing about food plots. If your neighbors are hunters too, they know what you've got. They know you got a food plot. You think you put a camera up, got a picture of some nice bucks. I'll guarantee you they got the same picture. They got 4 or 5 other cameras up seeing these bucks. So in a way, why should they put a food plot up? They can cut you off and cut them deer off before they get to you. So, hunting the rub line, that's how they're doing it. The mature bucks are walking that rub line. They're not going to your food plot. They're going in somebody else's freezer. But you hunt the way you want to hunt. As long as you're happy with it, I have no problem. As long as you're out there hunting. So go ahead and leave me a comment. I will get back to you. Go ahead and subscribe. And like I say, if you're in the woods, be careful. Rather be safe than sorry. And I'll get back with you. And you all have a good day and hopefully a good hunting season.